And obviously, we'd like to see them all get to this stage, but I think the beauty of what we're looking at is the fact that we've actually got data, and that's
Yes.
something that we've been lacking for years. And I think for us to make comparisons on programming and what type of programming works the best, we needed to take this step, and now we can start being more targeted in what we're going to plan to do with programming in the future. So if our programming tells us that the minimal of 3 days a week is really where we need to be, because we're not showing the gains in 2 day a week, or 4 or 5 days, whatever that is, we're going to have data that'll back up those decisions versus us just assuming things.
So alliteration is really one of those late skills, but kids have certainly made gains in those areas. Some of the strategies that they use that are really, I think, are really exciting for the classrooms because they require 30 to 60 seconds are transition songs. And so they'll do those as they're lining up to go to the bathroom, as they're lining up to leave, as they're just anytime they're moving from A to B. And the songs are infectious, and you can't get them out of your head, even if you wanted to.
Yeah. So what I'm seeing from this graph and the previous graph is, even if you're not in a reading core classroom, it looks like our preschool teachers are implementing those strategies as well, because your results are close to same, if not exceeding. Okay.
And then letter sounds. This one was the biggest difference.
Right. This is critical. This is critical for being a quality reader. And so this is one. Now in the reading core rooms, this will actually, interventions on this would just be starting to happen now. At this point in the year, they have to go through, like I told you, there's a certain order for trying to get kids on target, but they're just doing those now. But they do, again, a lot of transition things, a lot of tier 1 things that kids are picking up on, and they're making gains from those.
They call them the commercials, little commercials in between time.
Yep.
So, and then we have applied for reading core again next year. We have applied for 2 members. We have yet to find out if we've received them, but the word on the street is that if we had members this year, we would get them again next year. So we're pretty excited to hopefully have Michelle back, and then have one other community member that we will need to try and find.
So getting back, I'm hearing that say that those reading core members are done at the end of this current year, unless the grant or the funding comes through?
Correct.
And is there alternatives for if that grant or funding doesn't come through?
We will continue with, for sure, the tier 1 that we have all learned this year, because it makes a huge difference. So that is something that would continue as far as finding another staff person.
Right, we've got Jennifer will be no doubt in the classroom for us again next year, and she's had all the training, so we'll continue in her classroom, you would like to think. And as you said, many of the other instructors have had this tier training, and how do you advance it from tier 1 is where we need to start looking at in the future.
There's definitely a time issue in trying to offer interventions and having an additional staff person to offer groups for 2 to 3 kids and so forth. But all of the tier 1 things that are happening, there's no reason why why those things can't continue to happen.
Okay.
They're singing songs anyways. That's what they do. So there's no reason they can't use these. Yeah.
Well, I think what staff are finding as well is the transitions are becoming much more important to them. It used to be, okay, we're going to move from circle time to free play or whatever it might be, and things would just take place. Well, now they're being more intentional on how they're moving kids from one spot to the next. It's just been amazing to go in and observe the difference this year between last year. And the use of time is what's so important there. There used to be dead time. If they're letting them go to the bathroom or whatever it would be, you'd lose 30, 40, 50 seconds a day. How many times a day and how many transitions of learning time? Well, you probably picked up, probably 10 minutes of educational time on a daily basis with these kids just because of that one intentful change.
And if you're only there for 2.5 hours, 10 minutes is significant, And really from the social emotional side too, to be engaged in something while you're waiting or traveling from A to B is advantageous too. So.
When you take the Cardinal kids, because it's all day, every day, that 10 minutes is probably even 20 minutes, and 172 days, you're really talking, close to 300-400 hours of increased educational time.
And then also along with the reading core, we did what's called the ELCO. Again, I don't know what that acronym stands for, but it's the environmental setup of the room and how literacy rich it is. So in all of our reading core rooms, we have done an ELCO both fall and then we'll do them again in the spring as well.
Yeah, Minnesota Reading Core is really
Yep,
data-driven, and
yes.
there's systems in place for us to, that they want statewide information too. And so then it's been a really great thing for us to be a part of it, because it's really, provided us with some real data and things. We've been able to replicate the collection of the data across all of our classrooms, which is a good thing too for us.
And so that could live on whether or not you had the grant, because you're using RTI as well.
Tier 2, Tier 3, a little bit harder, but Tier 1 for sure.
And the data collection.
Right,
Yeah.
we did use the IGDs the year prior, so the last school year, we were using the IGDs. We weren't aware of how Reading Core was doing it. So Reading Core has brought some fidelity that's happened in all of, we were able to the numbers mean more now, because we know that it's more authentic the way it's being used in all of the settings.
Well, and the data will help us drive decision making.
Yes.
So if we've got X amount of resources, if we think that the resources are best spent in this type of model, well, yeah, by all means, we'll do it that way. So I think that's the other thing that's going to help us is, okay, what resources do we have? How are we going to allocate them? Well, if the data tells us that the classrooms with Reading Core are having these gains and the other ones aren't, well, what are we doing differently? Let's do it in all of them. So any new resources that come in, whether that be from the federal level, the state level, or the local level, I think there's potential with what's taking place in policymakers' minds this year, that any of these things can take place even regardless of whether or not we get a Reading Core site.
That's great. And then Ann and I both go into each of the rooms and we need to do integrity checks on the members twice a month, so that we ensure that it's being done with fidelity. And then that all goes back to Reading Core.
And we go to roughly a monthly, regional training that Minnesota Reading Core puts on for tutors and their coaches too.
Clarify that again. You go into twice a month, is that what you said?
Twice a month we'll go in
Into these
integrity.
classrooms
Integrity
and
checks.
we'll validate what they're doing, basically.
There's
So,
specific.
mini observations. I mean, theoretically, you're doing kind of mini observations twice a month.
Right, pretty much.
For the community member.
On the member, both community member and professional member.
Right.
And we have specific sheets that Reading Core gives us, because we need to watch the repeated read-along, we need to watch the interventions, we need to make sure that they're doing the benchmark assessments.
And there's scripts, and
Yeah.
they are to follow the script when conducting the assessments and the interventions and so forth. And so they want us to make sure that they're not just winging it. They're doing what they're
Right,
supposed to do.
that's my point, I'm kind of asking the
Yeah.
question.
Building off the
Yeah.
next question is we're implementing the teacher evaluation process. And so this kind of information, this kind of data could be implemented for our ECFU teachers as we look at implementing mini observations for them, correct?
Do you want to speak to class on that?
Yeah, with the model that the district's using, obviously I sat in on those trainings, and now this past month I've taken part in what is called class, and Jody did the same last year. And it's a different way of looking at your instructors and the work they're doing. So I think we're going to look at, in talking to Liz, some potential hybrids on what it means to observe and evaluate our early ed teachers versus what might be taking place in the K-12 system, just because I think there's different things to look for. Marzano's model, or any other, the other Marshall's, or any of the other observation and evaluation models for teachers, although I think they're quite good, given what takes place in these classrooms, it's just a little bit different learning atmosphere, so I think the class fits it better. So I think we'll utilize a lot of the trainings that Jody and I have both taken in, and hopefully be able to send more staff members to that, so that they better understand what it means to be what I think is a better early ed teacher.
Right. But as a licensed teacher, who can evaluate them? And they will be part of that 2014, 2015 evaluation process, correct?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right.
Yep.
That sounds good.
And then the last thing we want to talk a little bit about today is the Willmar Children's Cabinet. probably last spring, last summer, when Willmar was designated as having a focus and a priority school, there was a community member that did approach the United Way about wanting to ensure that his donation was going to education and how could the money that is being given to United Way better be used to help get these kids ready for school. So a meeting was set up, and United Way did invite Steve and I and Ann to attend that. And we sat around and we talked a lot about what currently we are doing in Willmar around early education. He was very surprised at what was going on, but he also kind of charged us to think a little bit further outside of the box. And so hence the Willmar Children's Cabinet was developed, and it is a partnership, and around the table we do have the United Way and Empower, Child Care Aware, Head Start, the school district, private child care, public health,
Library.
and the
Southwest.
yeah,
No.
library, not so much around that one, and then the Southwest Initiative Foundation. And we've had several meetings again to try and come up with a plan on how we can even push our thinking a little bit further. And so we came up with kind of a 5-6 point plan to look at what we can do to even further our efforts. And so what we want to do is we want to reduce the disparity in children's learning experiences across the community settings by improving professional development. So what we have already done is with our satellite sites, we've already started this, we are doing common professional development. So we have trained them on the same curriculum and the same assessment as we are using. So by the end of this school year, we will have common assessment information. The next thing we want to do is unify curricula and programming, so that if a child moves from one program to the next program, it's going to be the same curriculum, same assessment. And so that, again, we are working with the Grow Mobile, we're working also with the satellite sites again to have the same curriculum. We want to increase the number of high-quality learning programs to better meet the demand. So what we are trying to do is work with as many family providers and centers as we can to up that quality so they could be parent-aware rated and also work jointly to have that common curriculum and assessment piece. Improve outreach to assist families in understanding their options and accessing program of their choice. Really to get that information out to parents about what is out there, what does it mean to be high quality, so just to help them understand that, and then evaluation to really look at what we're doing to see if it's working. And one of the other pieces that we had a lengthy conversation about is having, we're working with the Grow Mobile, and they are going to be increasing the number of family child care sites that they go to. But we also talked about there's clusters of kids throughout the community that don't go anywhere because families do not want to let their children leave them. They don't have the transportation to get anywhere. So we've talked about even potentially looking at mobile preschool sites. That's kind of in the phase 3 of this plan, but that possibility as well. We've also had a lot of discussions with Zach Mohammed over with the Somali Community Center, and they are looking at starting a child care center, and they hope to have that running by summer. We've had a lot of discussion with him once that is up and going, that we could support them with professional development and alignment of curriculum and assessment as well. So there's a lot of conversation happening. We've kind of did phase 1. We had received some funding through Community Ed and Rec, some through private funders. We have applied for some of the phase 2 funding, and hopefully that will get us to phase 3 and then phase 2, and then hopefully we'll be able to apply for phase 3 funding. So busy. But that's it.